Hi everyone, it is Sunday the 21st of June 2020. We are hurtling through this year. November obviously being a really big, 3rd of November specifically, being a very big, I want to say iceberg heading towards us that we need to be keeping an eye on. There's going to be most likely continued civil unrest across parts of the US and potentially globally between now and then. And also kind of jitteriness or insecurity in the markets between now and then, mainly and predominantly because of the uncertainty surrounding the US election. If you're not in the loop with that, you probably should be. There's a lot of concern that Donald Trump will somehow manage to achieve a second term. And actually not just that, but that the Republicans will likely maintain majority. And this has a global economic impact effectively. However, there are some strong signs, and the next week will probably add to that, that there is likely to be a reversal of fortunes, and that we might in fact see a flip towards Democrats, and that Joe Biden will likely be the next US president, which is a very good thing. Yes, so that's really where the uncertainty comes around, is that it's becoming very clear that the Republicans will do anything they can, including voter suppression, and Trump will do a lot of things that he can in order to maintain power. And it's a highly disconcerting, I guess, a situation to be in. And so we're living through historic times. If I haven't kind of made it clear, we're living through historic times where we are seeing, I guess, fascism take hold in the US, and so this is what's interesting about it, and the US is on the verge of, I guess, the South rising again. That's kind of a simpler way, derivative approach to putting it. So anyway, the whole point of that is just to underscore why we are living through historic times, and we need to be aware of what's going on there, and also that this is part of the explanation, at least potentially contributing to the lack of clear direction in the currency markets, potentially as well as the general economic climate. And so, and actually, I'm just going to take a moment to talk about this, which I know is unusual for me to do that, but I think that I want to put this out there and then kind of just to see how this all plays out. But a big difference between history up until the late 90s, early 2000s, and today is that there has been a shift in wealth significantly, and but at the same time, there really hasn't been any improvement for the majority of the population certainly since the late 2000s, 2009 global financial crisis. In fact, if anything, it looks as though it's kind of stayed the same or got worse for most people, but that the wealthy have got even wealthier. And so this is a part of what is causing a lot of the civil unrest globally. And so until we see some potential changes in that, this is potentially part of the ongoing kind of issues. So that's kind of my take on those things. And I've spoken for 3 minutes on that. I apologize. But let me get to the charts and let's just have a look at what's going on at the moment. So in the last week, we've shifted actually into an uptrend on the US dollar basket. We're now heading up towards 98, which was a discussion we had before, potentially back up here into test these levels of previous support as resistance. We can see we've got a swing low on the weekly. We are largely range bound anyway, and so price action itself is not offering that much clarity. I don't anticipate just yet, because especially we had a really strong move down which indicated a potential breakout, and we've immediately changed trend and gone back into an uptrend. So really what we're seeing on the daily is really just kind of the monthly and weekly playing out, and there is no clear trend at this point in time. It does look more bullish than bearish. All right, so what I'm anticipating in the early stages, and I guess all of this is underscored by the fact that there is no clear trend here. So this uptrend could go back into a downtrend because effectively we're range bound and there is nobody in control. But in the shorter term, I am looking at it to at least attempt to continue upwards. So in the early parts of the week, I'm looking and anticipating a stronger US dollar. So looking at the euro dollar, we now have a downtrend on the daily. We are still kind of range bound on that weekly, and certainly on the monthly, there's no clear direction there. So it just means that if I am trading it down towards key levels, I'm going to be prepared to take profits sooner rather than later, and I'm not going to be shocked if the trends change direction. Okay, so looking at cable, back into a downtrend. We're in an uptrend on the weekly. Okay, technically high lows, high highs, and we're still within this range on the monthly, but we are looking bearish. So far my expectation again on these is to see the euro and cable head lower. Then looking at Aussie dollar, US dollar, we're not in a confirmed downtrend on the daily just yet. And we're still kind of testing this level of resistance. But actually, it's interesting that we've come up and almost, have we broken the highs? Let me just confirm this quickly. So the high of this is 7064, and we've got 7020 and 7032. So we have broken this downtrend on the monthly. All right, but if we do close the bearish candle, we might see price go down. So effectively what's happening here is that this downtrend we've had for a while is now effectively broken, and we're really going to have to see what happens next. This is likely to potentially range or decide if it wants to continue to climb. So that also now does not confirm anything other than the fact that there is a lack of trending in the near future. We have a we don't even have a confirmed downtrend on Kiwi dollar, and we do have a solid uptrend on the weekly, and we have a downtrend on the monthly. So there we go, uptrend weekly, downtrend monthly. No trend yet on the daily. Again, just adding to the general kind of lack of direction. All right, so what this does for me though is that if we do have a strong US dollar, a significantly strong US dollar, we break this weekly trend, Kiwi dollar is immediately going to become my favorite for the medium term, in other words, the next few weeks, to head lower, because it hasn't broken its monthly downtrend. So in other words, it's inherently weaker already. At the same time, it just means I'm going to be very cautious. There's no significant economic calendar news that I could identify. There's crude oil inventories. There's nothing much. So there isn't anything that I would say, okay, the market's really waiting for that. I do think the market is just watching the general, it's watching the indices, which I'll get on to in a separate video, and it's just waiting on some kind of a clarification as to kind of what's going on. And so we'll see the significance on that. So as I said, just to recap on this, I am anticipating, at least for the next couple of days, 1 to 2, maybe 3 days, a stronger US dollar as it heads and attempts to head up towards 98, possibly back up to 98.80 or 99. And at the same time, if it does suddenly just whipsaw and change direction once it hits 98 and then goes back into a downtrend, that's perfectly acceptable because we have no clear direction on any of these charts really. So it just means caution. Intraday trading probably preferred, with caution on me taking profit sooner rather than later, but there are no longer term trends here and there's no longer term clarity coming in here. So let's just see where we are next week and to see if anything significant has happened, if we've headed much lower or just any kind of a clarity there. But yeah, the charts are not showing any particular signs in any direction other than leaning slightly stronger US dollar this week.